Welcome to another episode of the Sage Holistic Show. My name is Emily Celis and I'm your host. Tonight we have a Sage Chat. This is where we're talking all about what home is, how home changes over the years, and what you can do to make where you are more like home. Have a listen.
S.A.G.E is a 501c3 nonprofit organization building community by providing education and counseling about physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. We encourage all of our listeners to find their own path to what holistic wellness means to you. We are live on Facebook here tonight for our Sage Family Chat. Hey, ladies. How's everyone doing? It's always so nice to get together with all of you. And I kind of had set the tone for this Sage Chat because I wanted to talk about the concept of home. And especially because the holidays are upon us, this topic, if it's not being talked about, it's something that we're all feeling. Maybe we're not even saying that we're feeling it. And this year, I know it's going to be a little bit different for a lot of people. I know I typically go visit my family for the holidays and not doing that. And I'm sure there's other things you guys have that you're dealing with, and everyone that's listening also has their own stories. Everyone has such complex and important lives that we're leading. So tonight, I just wanted to gather all of us. I want you guys to, introduce yourselves, say your name and who you are, what you do at Sage. And then we'll kind of just jump into this conversation. So I'm Emily Celis, for those that don't know me, and I'm the founder of Sage. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist at Sage, and I am the Reiki teacher when we are teaching.
Hi, I'm Lianna Huseman. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist here at Sage.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I am a nutritional therapy practitioner and the Reiki at Sage, Reiki 2.
Hi everyone, my name is Sadaf Shalchian and I am an associate marriage and family therapist here at Sage.
Hello, I am Reagan Hovey and I too am an associate marriage and family therapist and associate professional clinical counselor here at Sage.
Thank you guys so much. I just wanted to start the conversation off tonight by even just talking about what makes a place a home. Like, what is home to you guys? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I think we all probably bring our own flavor to that, of what makes a place feel like home.
Who wants to start?
I know.
I know, right? Jump in there.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll go. When we started talking about this topic, I have to say that I come from, I would like to say, a very blessed background with family. So family is number one for us. I still celebrate birthdays and holidays with my first cousins. There's 16 of us, almost all of us. My grandparents, great aunts, great uncles, and then now all of the kids of the cousins. So our family gets bigger and bigger. But I would say in the last couple of years, our holidays haven't really felt the way they used to feel to me. And I would find myself not truly enjoying my favorite holiday, which is Christmas, right? I would even like glaze over Thanksgiving, just couldn't wait to get to Christmas. And what I realized is because us cousins we're getting married and having kids, we have to start sharing our time with the in-laws, right? And so I found this like very selfish side to me, almost like I went back to being like 10, 11, 12 and wanting what we had. And so for a couple of years, I didn't allow myself to truly enjoy the holidays because of all of the shifts and the changes. And it wasn't until last year where I had to take, like a self-inventory, like, why am I creating this for myself? And that's what was happening. I wasn't in the moment. I wasn't being present. I was really holding on to something that was in the past. It was like our traditions, but I wasn't allowing room for like new traditions to come in, for new family members to come in, for original family members to like move in and out. And so even our space, like it changed houses because we kept getting bigger and the space felt like too cramped. So all of these elements were like really kind of putting a damper on my Christmas. And I was getting really upset about it. But what I realized last year after having my daughter and, putting myself in the position of my relatives is realizing that shifts change, like life happens and it doesn't stop for you. And I myself wasn't in the right mentality to just accept what was happening. I was really, really holding on to things that I didn't want to let go of. And I didn't realize that I was like mourning it. I was mourning the changes. I was mourning not having the same experience every year. And I think many of you can probably relate to the idea of change and shifting and just not being able to really embrace it. And so what happened with me last year is that I realized, like, for me now, what family is like, it's not a person, or I'm sorry, it's not or home, sorry. What home is for me, it's like, it's not really a place, it's people, right? So for now, my husband and my daughter are my home, no matter where we're at. And I've changed homes so many times over the last 10 years. We don't have that one house anymore. I don't have like that one house where everyone goes to, where we had that for so long. That's missing now. And so I had to really take a step back and say, okay, well, what does home mean to me? And it's really about who is in my life. And when I started to make that shift happen, I felt alleviation and I felt myself enjoying more of the family function. It's really about who's in front of me, and also taking out the idea of who's not there, because I would harp on like who wasn't there, like, oh, they're gone. Now it was for me just being present, enjoying who's in front of me, and making new memories and new traditions and calling that home. And so that was my experience with that.
Gosh, you covered like so many good points in that, Lianna, and I can really relate to you on that, like really putting some thought into this topic. And for some reason, it's just been on my mind so much, where I've really just given that a lot of my attention lately. Then that's why I chose this topic. And, looking at the fact that it is people, but there are so many things you just mentioned about environment that can come up. And like you said, even like people that aren't there. And there can also be these ideas of like almost even like what movies portray, like, or what media portrays about what Christmas could be. And we can always get into this place of what we're not having and like what we're not experiencing. And it makes it really challenging to stay in the place of gratitude, and comparison like is way up high. Like when we see other people, especially with social media, when people post just their happy moments, because that's what they are, is their moments. That's not reality. That's not what happens in the day-to-day life that we all lead, the good and the bad. But yeah, that brings it home, like that talking about who you're with. But for me, I want to add to that too, like there's some environmental things that make a place feel like home too. And this feeling of groundedness that I've been really reflecting on, that comes along with being where your people are. If you have people, and we have a lot of people that don't have people listening, I'm sure too, like where they don't have those family members that are nearby, especially right now. So that's just something I wanted to talk to you guys about, like what your thoughts are on that. Like when we don't have those people around, or those family members that we would think would make that be like home, of what to do to kind of create this feeling of home.
I would actually love to add to this. I think what my experience is very similar to Lianna, but at the same time, it's also relatable of just moving, changing the environment, and how to find that feeling of home. So I personally have moved from country to country. So I lived in Iran, I lived in Sweden, now I live in the US. And with every move, I feel like I lost a sense of home, or what home meant to me. So I lost, it was a sense of mourning, like you were talking about, Lianna, a sense of grief that, okay, what I have left behind is what I have lost. The family, the materials, the house, the friends, the relationships, the people I grew up with. Like you, I have many cousins, and home felt like connecting with them. Home felt like going to grandma's house on the weekend, or home felt like going having family dinner after after school. And when I moved, that changed so much. So with the move came a lot of different opportunities, right? But however, as a teenager, um, I really felt that home was a place, it was a material, or even sometimes those close connections. And what I have learned so far for me is the true meaning of home is a feeling of belonging, a sense of expressing our true selves, a sense of accepting ourselves exactly where we are at. So home is is something that I got another opportunity to build, another opportunity to create. Now, home can be something temporary, it could be something permanent. And then a lot of people think of home as something eternal, right? So, but what I learned is that in that sense of belonging, I must personally be so true to myself, to belong to myself, to belong to find that sense of belonging to who I am within, regardless of the environment. Sure, these shifts happen and it changes and teaches us so many different things. And with those moves, I learned how to adapt. I got so good at adapting. So that could be positive or negative, or that could be helpful or not helpful, because then we start belonging to these different labels, these different expectations, the American dream, or the new thing that you want to fit into. And as a teenager, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fit in, and that was very, very hard. So this change has taught me that I don't have to fit in, that I have to actually belong. And to answer your second question of how can we create that homeness, not home, totally the opposite.
Like homeness, that's a good one.
That homeness is instead of trying to fit in, I think for me it was belonging. So grounding myself, journaling about who I am, what my purpose is, and becoming authentic with myself, and being able to express myself and my reflect my authenticity and needs in different environments, and allow others to accept me on the basis of that truth. So that helps me feel like I'm at home when I'm truly true to myself. I hope that answers the question. I don't know if I got really deep, but
Well, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you're saying it's the sense of belonging that really is what makes you feel like home, and you create that by being authentic to yourself and expressing that authenticity. So Reagan and Crystal, what would you add to this as far as like what makes a place a home to you, or what's coming up for you?
I feel like a lot came up for me with both of what you touched on, because similarly come from a very big family. However, my whole family is in Georgia, and when I moved out here, it definitely, and I stayed in Georgia even for college. Like I was never more than maybe 30 minutes away. So that was kind of the first time that I realized, even I guess it was the first opportunity that I had to even like reflect on like, oh, what is home going to be now? Because previously, even when I think about it now, I think the word that comes to mind is sort of that it's like a base, right? Like a cozy place where I can go. And I hesitate to use the word safe because I don't know that that's always been the case, but it was, I guess, more so like a place to rest. Any number of things, but essentially in moving here, it definitely made me consider like, what do I want home to be? What does that look like? And in some ways, what I found myself doing was trying to honor the things that I guess gave me that feeling of home. So it'd be things like cooking a particular recipe of my grandmother's, or just watching a particular movie, like this movie that we watch every year, like upholding certain sort of traditions. But then in some ways, it was also what I found was this like ability to pick and choose, in the sense of that I don't know, in some ways it was sort of scary and definitely sad a lot of the time, especially around the holidays, where I'm like, man, I really miss that. But in some ways it has been empowering as well, where I get to establish a new sense of home, of like what creates that coziness for me. That sounds, I feel like even I'm using that cozy word, like I can't think of a better word. But that
Oh, I like that word though. I think it really reflects like what it can feel like, you know, and what you aim for, like what you're aiming to do, right? By doing those different things that have worked in the past. I mean, my question I put out, just because I like to be the other side of this and like reflect some other opinions too, is like, what do you do when we don't have those? What do we do when we don't have those things? Like when we don't feel like, we look back on our lives and we see the things that do bring that meaning, or that question that I hear sometimes of like, well, how do I find out what it is that I like even, right? I mean, what, just kind of throwing that question out there to you guys, like, what would you say to someone who says something like that, who doesn't have those things?
I would say, because when I think of home, it's yourself, like kind of with what Sadaf was talking about, and people like in a spiritual sense, like coming home to yourself, that your body is a home for the soul. So when you kind of build a connection with that through meditation or through just silence, or like Sadaf said, journaling, and you're able to tune in and like have that peaceful belonging, you feel safe. That could be something that people rely on who don't have all of those traditions. And then of course too, like any other home, you like your space and your environment, you want to take care of your body as well. So just really listening to what it needs and providing it with what it's asking for. So kind of in a different sense of home.
I love that. Yeah, coming from our nutritionist, right? And it's so true. Like, you really do have that experience that you are able to help shine light on and share with others, like that, you know, we can come home to ourselves by taking care of our bodies and being able to experience that self-care. But I think you bring some really great points, and I love that, like the body is the home of, or how did you say that? The body is the home
of the soul.
Yeah. Right. I'm like, that's true. I love looking at that, like starting bare bones, just right there, you know, that's what we can do. And that's where we can turn, you know, inward, kind of like what Sadaf was saying too, of the ways to journal and kind of reflect on yourself and what matters to you. And sometimes it is helpful to have guides along the way to do that if it feels like that process gets stunted or doesn't continue on.
Yeah, it could be just such a strong foundation for when all of you are saying that you've moved around so much, and just having that solid foundation of that relationship with yourself can kind of keep you stable throughout that. Or home could be really anywhere then at that point, if you're just so at peace with that.
Yeah, that's that grounding, right? Just grounding in yourself and being able to open that up. But Crystal, what would you say of what makes a place like home? I mean, is that kind of where your thoughts were on that question? Did that?
You mean like I would say more with the people too. Definitely the people that you're with.
Yeah.
Make it more of a home too. And I like the grounding that you said, saging it, getting your energy into the area and clearing out other people's energy would be something to do to make something feel a little bit more at home.
Yeah, no, I think these are all such awesome thoughts. I mean, feeling grounded, a sense of belonging, who you're with, the people that are around you, no matter where you are, the coziness, you know, just getting grounded in your physical body. I think these are all wonderful ways that that we've shared here. I wanted to kind of throw the question out too about whether you guys feel that that idea of home changes over the course of a lifetime, like the trajectory of like when you're a child or you're an adolescent, and then kind of like Reagan, what you were saying, like in this place where you've moved away from home, now you're in your young adult, or you get married, like you said, Lianna, and you have a family of your own. And then kind of like later on too, I'm sure, people at a different phase in life as well, like empty nesters, or, people that have different phase, like life changes. And I wonder if that experience of home changes. I mean, we only know up to where we are right now, but I just wonder, how you guys have maybe noticed that idea has shifted for you over the course of your lives up to this point.
Before you asked that question, when I was listening to Crystal and what she was speaking upon about self, one thing that I was thinking about, even for people who have families but maybe don't like to participate or don't feel like they want to, when they say home, like home isn't their family, even though they have an abundance of that connection, alongside with people who maybe don't have the family members here that they can call home, is the idea, and then tying that into your question about how does home shift with the idea of home. And I was thinking about allowing yourself or gifting yourself to create new meaning in your life, that our meaning of every situation in our lives, they do shift and they do change. However, sometimes I feel like we torture ourselves in a way to uphold a tradition or to be in agreement with like certain family members of what home is. But in actuality, we have shifted so much internally and we have changed and we have grown that sometimes we don't allow ourselves to create new meanings to what these words mean to us, what these concepts mean to us. And it kind of goes the opposite way, right? Home all of a sudden is a word we don't want to hear. We don't want to embrace. We want to just push away and then become maybe a little bit rebellious in it. And so I think to answer that question is, yes, I do think it changes over time. And I think that our life experiences can help us to shift internally and make a change and then make a new meaning for it. Knowing that for me, home meant something to me 5 years ago. And as I was going through that shift, I think I was pushing against it. Like, no, this can't change. But I wasn't allowing myself to create new meanings. So for me, I'm at a place in my life where I have a young child and I have a husband, and, I have this growing family that home means something so different to me. And I'm finally allowing myself to embrace that idea and concept, create new meaning for it, and then owning it and saying, this is my meaning, regardless of my mom or dad or siblings or cousins are like, that's not what it is. It's for me to say, in actuality, I respect what you feel home is, but for me, this is what it means for me now. And I've created and I'm owning this moment in time, and I'm owning this, new meaning, and I'm going to live it the way that I see fit. And more important, what just feels good to me. And like Reagan, you said, I think that's where I feel safe. I do feel safe when I can say, this is what it means for me. I'm going to live my life this way, also with respects and regards to my family, but also finding the balance in between both, right? Keeping some of the tradition, keeping some of that, and saying, I'm going to splice it with mine so I can live my best life. And I think that can be very hard. It can be very difficult depending what culture you come from and your experiences. But if you can get to that place of comfortability within yourself to find that balance, I think that's where that idea of change can happen, and it can be a great change and shift.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love all of that you're saying, Lianna. And it's real. I mean, I feel like we're talking about grief too. Like the letting go process is what you're talking about, and being willing to have new life and new experiences come at us. And we hold like so steadfastly onto this past experience, thinking that's all that it can be or all that it should be. But yet all these new opportunities and new ideas are right there waiting for us. And we just have to kind of jump off that cliff. It's I was talking about this with someone, and I was realizing, as far as the idea of home, I've lived in California now longer than I've lived anywhere else. And that, I don't know why that kind of struck me by surprise, because I kind of had this idea that, I lived in Chicago, for my childhood, and then my family moved to Utah. And then that felt like more of home, because that's where I was kind of like junior high, high school, young adults. And then I was here and I'm like, okay, I've been here over 20 years now. California wins. I'm here the longest. But where have I felt most at home, right? And what do I need to let go of? Because I don't need to like keep holding up my life to the light of what my past was, and that I get to be in charge. And I feel empowered in that, you know, like in what you guys were saying. I think the grief piece, sometimes we just don't know how to grieve. We don't know how the other side of that is so much renewal and so much freedom and so much new expression of ourselves. I don't know. It's just it's a powerful thought to be able to walk into something that you can create and you can let go of what you don't care for and move into something else. But you brought up to Lianna, like not having to agree with others about what it should be, right? And being able to stand against what a family says home should be and what you need to expect to accept as part of what your home is or what your family relationships are. And it's not that either, that it gets to be a boundaried place of safety and coziness within ourselves.
A tough boundary to place. Right?
Truly.
Family, it's unheard of, and you're like,
so true, especially during the holidays, right? I mean, that's where it becomes even more like you are expected to do this way. So not just our expectations, but everyone else's expectations of us.
Truly. Well, and all of this is even making me think about, it's like one of those questions that I love asking in therapy with people is sort of like, what were the rules in your home of origin? You know, what did that look like? And even just looking at the ways in which we kind of inherit those things, sometimes by choice, right? Because we are supportive of that, right? Of like, yeah, like I value this thing. So this is something that I brought into my own life, into my own home. But then some of the things we just kind of, they soak in. And then it's not until sometimes when you have that shift, I can speak for myself. And it wasn't until I kind of had that like perspective and that distance to be like, wow, there were some things that I even brought into my own homes and when I was in Georgia that were maybe not serving me. And I guess that's even just me kind of like trying to like silver line being like far from home at times, but it certainly speaks to, right, like just this time of year especially just really, I think, brings all of that out, right? Because largely people are gathering at these spaces, these homes that they've grown up in, right, where there's these memories attached to them as well of like, oh, this was the rule and we don't talk about feelings and you know, so don't try to do that here, right? But then in your own home, you might have a different role. And then even that in and of itself, I think speaks to, and I feel like each of you have really touched on this in such a profound way about like, even the idea of like a physical home, like the four walls around you and the people that inhabit that space. But then of course, also the more like ethereal home that like we each have, that's for some, that's maybe they're in a place right now where that is the only sense of home that they have. And it's just cool. I feel like that there's that ability to really like ground yourself in either space. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think also too, as a kid, kind of thinking back on that, the childhood, like asking those questions of what the rules are too. I mean, we as children, whatever our experience was, right, whether it was parents or other caregivers or whatever environment we were in as a child, someone else was making the home for us. Someone else curated that environment. And we didn't have much of a say most of the time, right? Most kids don't. And that's kind of a hallmark of being a child, is you don't get asked a lot of questions of how you want things to go. You just kind of just do what you're told. But I mean, and more so in some families than other probably. But yeah, we get to curate that for ourselves. And so that's kind of what I wanted to end on tonight. I know we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here. We usually try and keep these to about 30 minutes, but what would be something that you would suggest to someone, or something that you've done, like a specific thing that really helps make you, the place that you live, feel like a home, or that makes your body feel like a home? I thought I could end on that.
So I think what to add to what Crystal was saying earlier, it's a sense of wholeness. So what does wholeness mean for you, and kind of taking your body and your mind there. So it could be physical, psychological, spiritual self, to the point of taking care of that part of you. And that might mean setting those boundaries, saying no to what doesn't mean home to you anymore, and creating a safe space where you feel okay recreating that meaning for yourself. Like Lianna was saying, um, I have moved a lot, so I had to actually. It doesn't happen automatically. We can sometimes stay with the same meanings, with the same expectations or labels, um, or boundaries that have been set. So one thing that I want to leave behind is um, feeling okay with setting those boundaries to manually put the effort into creating that change for yourself. Sometimes time doesn't change it. It's really us who take the steps into making home home.
I love that. It's like almost seeing that picture of like the image of you like creating that home, like by setting boundaries with other people or with your time and with your space too. That's great. Who else?
I think, something to leave for people that I do personally with myself is, and I know Brene Brown says this beautifully, and I'm just going to bring her in because I love her, but it's that idea of before I walk into a space, right, whether it's my home or a relative or whoever, is I literally check in with myself and ask myself, what are the stories I'm telling myself of the situation or myself? So it's like I'm checking in with the BS in my head. It's the easiest way I can say it, is that it is maybe a false reality, but in that moment, it is my reality. And checking in with utilizing my vulnerability and just saying, what's the story? What's the experience? What am I hyping myself up for? Where are these feelings come from? And ask myself if that's really what's happening. Because we have insecurities, we have traumas, we have so much that comes from childhood, and we're bringing it in. And then I think a lot of times we make the cloudiness sometimes, and it doesn't all come from us, but I think a large portion is, what am I keeping? What am I owning? And being able to just get rid of that and say, all right, I'm here. This is my true experience. And I'm going to move into that space of, I'm going to create what home is for me, but really just checking in and really being comfortable with myself, not judging myself for what what I think my experience is or what it is, and then just moving forward. That's something I'm still working on. It's still I have a little voice, that little voice in my head that reminds me of something super traumatic. And it's like, oh, well, this is what it is. And I'm going, okay, I'm 36 years old. I really need to get a handle on this. And there is no age. I think whatever age you are, you can start at any place, but just saying, I think we all have these beautiful words. We all have these experiences, but sometimes we have to get to that gritty part of us and just say, what's actually happening? Let me sit with it, and then let me move forward. And that has been helping me to define a lot of things in my life, home, and so much more.
No, that'll help you get real with what's happening, like to really be true with what's happening, not the stories that you're telling yourself about it. I love that. Yeah.
That spoke to me. Largely because it has me thinking about even the sense of home that I feel with myself. And it's only really I'm only ever able to get there when I am practicing that level of self-compassion, right? For even acknowledging, okay, maybe this is a story I'm telling myself, but it's creating some feelings in me. And then just being compassionate towards myself, no matter what that ends up looking like or being or doing. And I'm just going to throw this one out there because it's such a good one. Krista Neff has this self-compassion exercise, and that has really helped me with my own self, like feeling at home in my own skin, because it's sort of like giving voice to both that inner critic, right? Who's usually the really loud one who has like a freaking microphone. But then also giving a chance for that criticized part of myself to have a voice and say like, hey, that kind of hurts.
Yeah.
But it's just like acknowledging all of those different pieces, and then ultimately that's definitely like yielded an ability to be more to feel like even more of a sense of like stability within myself, because it's not this constant battle where one is winning and the other is losing, like this teeter-totter. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, we can all live together.
And
Exactly.
I love that. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. And I love bringing in these other beautiful minds that we learn from and we connect with. And it's always so great to just keep pushing it forward, right? Kind of sharing those things. Crystal, did you have anything you wanted to leave us with today?
Something that could just help with what you all were saying, just like taking note of what is going on in your mind and your realities, is just journaling and be able to just sit and get it all out on the paper, so you can like look back at your patterns, or just like, just get it all out so it doesn't stay in your mind. Just let it all out.
Mm-hmm.
Could be helpful.
Yeah, kind of externalizing some of those things so that they don't take up space inside your mind.
Yes.
That's great. I know one thing that I do in my home too is I have a space set up. This is a thing for me that helps me really get grounded in my environment, is to kind of set up a space, call it an altar or whatever you want to call it, but a place of like kind of special things or special thoughts or people that I really look up to, like the greats, some of the greats in the world, or pictures of my family, meaningful relationships, and just kind of have all that gathered in a space and just take a moment when I remember. I wish I could say I do it every day. I don't, but it's one of those spaces that's there for me to come to. And that can be kind of the center stone of my physical environment as a place to expand that, like kind of within myself, or, within my home environment. It's just trying to come back to myself, trying to come home to myself, so that then I can, even be that place like for my family too, right? Because we all kind of bounce off of each other. But I so appreciate the conversation tonight. This has been just on my heart for, gosh, ever since I kind of told you guys I wanted to do this sage chat, and I just appreciate the thoughtful comments and just all that you guys brought. I always get so much out of these conversations. So thanks so much for being here. And we will sign off. Thank you for spending some of your time today with us at S.A.G.E Holistic Health and Wellness Center. If you like what we're all about, please consider supporting our nonprofit organization by making a tax-deductible donation. To do this, you can go to our website at www.sagewellnessctr.org and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. We look forward to spending some time again with you real soon. Take good care.